Welcome back to another episode of the Life in the Right Lane podcast. Nicholas and Victoria with you today, as we always are. One of the things that we are looking forward to is a weekend where it's not raining. We seem to be having a lot of those. I don't know what it's happening here in Tennessee or even in the U.S., but I remember...
Very rainy for summer.
I remember a couple of summers that were like that, where it was just rainy, and your entire attitude changes. It's not like a normal summer. You have a very mellow attitude, very calm.
That's true.
Nothing makes you that excited.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think it can be a good thing if you need a different type of attitude, you know?
Yeah.
But at some point...
we could all use like a little breather to slow down and not be like rushing everywhere.
Yes, we could, but I think that was last year in general. I think last year was our breather year. So I think this year it would be great if it was sunnier, but God's in control of the forecast. So I can't do anything about that. What we can talk about today is...
what we can do.
Yes, what we can do.
Talk about dating.
Are you finished?
Yeah, I'm done. Was I cutting you off?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. What we can do, where I'm going with this, is decide what we do with our time, right? We can't control what happens in the world around us, but we can control how we spend our time. And when you're dating someone, it's really tempting to spend all of your time with that person. Mm-hmm. Especially if they are checking a lot of boxes for you, because you're going to get really excited. You've never found someone like this before.
Right.
You've never found someone that you've connected on so many different levels with. And the easiest thing in the world would be to just spend all of your time with them. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you? It's a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right. But what we don't understand is that can ultimately lead to an unhealthy relationship if you don't kind of nip that in the bud at the beginning, because that can turn into, in my opinion, that can turn into infatuation. And then you can't determine if they're the right person for you or not, because you're spending all of your time with them and you're kind of like jaded and blinded to maybe some things that are going on that aren't great.
Yes. So we've talked about this a lot before on the podcast. The purpose of dating is evaluating so that you're able to decide who is the right person for you for marriage. So much of the dating process is understanding how they handle situations, what is their character, how well do you get along with them. And when you spend too much time with someone, and when you put the blinders on, so to speak, and you don't really put things in perspective, you tend to make decisions that are not the best, not the wisest decisions. And so we want to have the most information, the most opportunity to make the right choice. And when you're spending time exclusively with someone, that can be really difficult.
Yeah, so I think this episode can just be helpful to kind of map out a few things that will help you keep that balance in check and not be spending all of your time with your significant other, but at the same time, spending enough time to properly evaluate and understand their character and who they are and more things about them. So I would say the first thing that you should not do is give each other like a play-by-play of everything that's gone on throughout your whole day. I think that we did this a little bit when we were dating, to be honest.
I think we did it a lot. I think this was
Maybe.
of the areas that we could have improved on dramatically. I think this was the area, because we had not found anyone like each other before. And we felt that connection, and it was a friendship first. And so we just wanted to be together all the time. It wasn't like this intense physical draw that we were just so passionate for each other. It was like we just genuinely wanted to be best friends.
Which is so cool. And that's such a good thing. But just like with anything excessive amounts of anything is bad, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So yeah, it could be a negative thing when you're too consumed into someone or something.
Right. So play by play, what we mean there is when you are texting the person nonstop, everything that's happening in your day, everything that you're thinking, every emotion you're feeling. One of the things that's hard when you're dating is that you tend to be a little bit more emotional. I've noticed this. I'm not a very emotional person.
It's true.
Surprise.
It's not.
But when I was dating, it was heightened. I had more emotions than I was used to, and I didn't really know how to handle that. So bad idea putting a phone in my hands and letting me text someone I really care about. So I think we struggled with texting too often, giving each other instant feedback on everything. At the time, you were kind of struggling with your work situation, and there was a lot of sadness and anger there, and sometimes it would be amplified 100 times just by texting. I felt like when we had those conversations, it was a little bit more like, I can't do this anymore. And just getting very emotionally charged, and me being someone that wants to protect you was getting really angry with you. And I think if we had had that conversation, there would have been some of that, but then we also would have been I would have been able to understand how to comfort you better. When on a phone, I don't understand fully how you're feeling.
Right.
There's a lot of nonverbal cues that I can't pick up on because it's the text message.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another thing is you are dating, and even in marriage, you don't talk 24/7. I know people tend to think that when you get married, your whole life is just that person, but that's not true. And that's coming from a couple that works together, works out together, lives together, obviously, drives into work together. We do a lot. We go to church together. We go to Bible study together. We have mutual friends that we go out with together. So even with that, we don't talk 24/7. So I think in a dating relationship, thinking that that's normal and that's healthy and it's just what you do, you just tell your significant other everything. Yes and no. I think there's a line. You obviously want to be vulnerable with that person. Tell them things about your day. Tell them things that are on your heart. When you've been dating for a substantial amount of time, I don't think you should just tell somebody you've been dating for a week everything about you. But, there is that slowly, like Shrek, like an onion, unfolding, and you're showing more of your layers to that person. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you need to be giving them a play-by-play of your day. So-and-so just walked into my office and said this. Save some things. Save some things for when you're in person, when you go on dates. Be very intentional when you're having conversations and when you're sharing a meal together or going out with friends or whatever it is. I think texting throughout the day is fine, but maybe just keep track of how often and how frequent and in the amount of texting that's going on. Just keep tabs on that, because it could be too much of a good thing. And it could, like you were saying, you can't tell the tone in someone's message. So it could start an argument.
The other
could
thing
have been
that
avoided.
We ran into not proud of, is that when someone would not reply in the amount of time that they generally would reply, we would think something was up. Uh-oh. And I remember one time in particular, you got mad at me because I didn't tell you I was going into a meeting that would take an hour and a half or something. And you had an outstanding message to me. I didn't reply back. And you were thinking the worst because I didn't reply back to you. I was like, well, I was in a meeting and I can't reply back to you in that. And I think there were some of those points.
Yeah. I think I was frustrated because you didn't tell me that you had a meeting and it was 2 hours long, in my defense.
Right. But what happens is you start expecting the response. And when we're together, you could say, hey, I got to do this real quick. It's just much easier. But when you are texting, you're basically committing to being with that person and talking with them 24/7. And sometimes that's not good, because when are you going to have time to think about all the things they're telling you?
Right.
When you have time to evaluate that person, you can't. You have to have the alone time so that God can speak into your life. And we'll talk about a little more in a second. The other thing I just wanted to say real quick, God puts you in the situation that you are in for a reason. He puts you in your job. He puts you in your apartment or your house or your townhome. He puts you in your friend group for a reason. That reason does not just vanish when you start dating someone. So remember that you're at work, and the reasons for you being at that particular job with those particular people, you may not fully understand, but you need to commit yourself to being present where you are. And I think that's a very crucial thing for our larger perspective of remembering all of this is for God's glory, and it's advancing his name. It's not about me finding my wife. It's about me doing his work. And his work requires us to be alert and open at all times. So we have to just understand that there are certain parts of our day that we just need to be fully invested in, even when it's hard, because we want to be with someone else.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And spinning off of that, when you're talking 24/7, 365, it takes away from who you're with and being present with those people, and who you're with and what you're doing. And, you can't be two places at once. So if if your mind is over here texting them, but you're with your group of friends,
right,
you're not really fully invested in where you're at, hanging out with those people.
Yeah, you're not giving your best.
Yeah, exactly. So just like what you're saying, everything is so that we can glorify God and further his kingdom here. He doesn't need us to carry out his plan, but he uses us. So if you're so enthralled with this person and so invested and only speaking to them, you're missing opportunities to speak life into other people and to make great connections with others. Like, it's okay to do something that you would normally do with your significant other with someone else, with a different friend, with a different coworker, So just don't miss those opportunities, because your mind is so emotionally, like you're saying, wrapped up in this person now. Yeah.
The last thing, and then we'll move on. This is a big point, I guess, that we've thought a lot about. You really need to cherish the time where you're face to face, or I suppose in the case of online dating, video screen to video screen, using that time to have good conversations is imperative. And what do you do when you've just been telling them every single thing that's happened to you in that day, and answering all these questions and giving them all of the details, and then you're together? What do you do with that time? Well, for people who are in person, that can lead to some very bad physical outlets for that time, where it really should be used to be getting to know them better and having conversations. You should have a lot to tell them when you get together. And when you text all day, you're not going to have a lot to tell them. So save some of that for in person. And that's one of the awesome parts about dating is, yes, you have to leave at the end of the night, and that was one thing we hated. But you also have more joy and excitement to see them than really any time of your life. It's just so new. It's so exciting every time you're with them. So make it special and have good things to talk about and have good conversations.
Yeah, that's a really good point about how that could lead into potential temptation if you have maxed out your conversation. And also, too, it's hard to have deep, vulnerable conversations, really sharing your heart and the tone behind your heart and what you're trying to convey and say and show your character over text. Like, I'm sure we've all been there where we've texted out some big, long message, really pouring our heart out about one thing or another. And it just doesn't convey the point the same way. And also kind of kind of in a way like snowballs this effect of like hiding behind your phone. And then you get together and it's hard for you to be vulnerable with that person in person. And then you can't really hear their true character and their true heart behind what they were saying, because words on a screen aren't going to show that to you as much as Nicholas telling me face to face and sharing how he's feeling or something that happened to him in his past or whatever it is. So how am I supposed to know what his true character is if I'm not hearing it from his mouth? And it's so, I mean, we live in such a digital age. It's so hard to like have these face-to-face conversations and really be intentional about them, because you can just send a message and it's so much easier and then you don't have to have the conversation. But don't skip by that, because that is not true and genuine vulnerability. And that is not a foundation that you can really build upon. So
yeah, that's so true. You have to have that real relationship to build on, not just the virtual one. And I know it's hard. We talked about doing an episode on dating long distance,
and
I know
probably will.
Yeah, we probably will. Maybe have some guests on that have done it. But you know, as much as you can, even if you are long distance, find time to see them face to face and try to have those moments as best you can. Or even just condense the amount of time that you spend with them to a few hours, like a block of hours instead of all day. So one of the other things that we noticed sort of subtracts from people who are dating and subtracts from their real spirit and personal life is they start to act like they're married. It's a very, very tempting thing to do because you want to be.
If you're in college, I almost feel like it's harder to not pretend like you're married, because everybody's all friends and you all kind of live near each other for the most part, or right down the street. You get groceries together with your roommate. You guys all make dinner together. It's kind of like easy for a significant other to slide in there, and you're basically playing house with them all of a sudden.
Right.
They're always over. They have the same friends as you. You guys cook meals together. Then you start getting groceries together. I mean, it's just, it could snowball. Then you start having like them over overnight, or you start staying at their place, and then it snowballs into we're pretending like we're married.
Right. So where that can take you, initially you really want to be with the other person and you want to spend time with them. But then it morphs into, now I feel like I have to spend time with them because I'm obligated to. And yes, it's very important while you're dating to spend time with them. Please do. That's the way that you're going to be able to evaluate them. But at the same time, you can't really count on the the responsibilities of dating. Really, there really shouldn't be a whole lot of responsibilities. As much as marriage offers, it also has responsibilities. And so there's a trade-off. There are benefits you receive, access to certain parts of their body, access to certain parts of their life, but then there are responsibilities that are included with that. When you are dating, you do not have your own set. The responsibilities are really, I'm going to treat this person well, which you should be doing anyway. I'm going to honor this person's body, which you should be doing anyway. I'm going to genuinely get to know this person, which you should be doing anyway. I mean, there really are a brother or sister in Christ until you get married. And so when you start playing house and acting like you're married, you say, well, you know, this is my girlfriend. I have to do this. And I have to spend time with her. And I have to go shopping for new slippers and, you know, whatever. I don't know. So I don't really have a great way to start rolling that back if you have started walking down that road. I don't know if you have any ideas, but it's kind of one of those things where once you're down that road, you really just need to have a conversation with that person and say, I really care about you. Maybe you've said, I love you. Totally fine. but we're still dating, and I want to start making it a priority for us to have our own personal lives. And it's not because I don't like being with you. And that's the part they'll take offense at. It's because I want to make sure that during my time as technically a single person, even though I'm saying, this is an exclusive relationship, during that time, I'm going to make sure that God can use me in any way that he wants to. And once we get married, then he will use me in an entirely different way. But until then, I have to continue keeping myself open to those opportunities. And don't feel bad. And if you have a significant other that is getting really upset because of your choice to spend time doing this thing as opposed to being with them, start with a conversation and explain your heart behind it. Usually it's not great to be like, well, I just wanted to. It's like, okay, well, that's probably not going to get you very far with your significant other. So truly think about being intentional with your time. If you want to build a relationship with someone who is a new believer and you're trying to be a great influence on them, that's a great way to sort of lead into that conversation. Like, well, I wanted to be with John because he's still new in his faith, and I want him to be surrounded by strong believers, and I wanted to take this time to intentionally get to know him. It's pretty hard for someone who is of right mind to be like, no, you can't do that. So when you lead into those conversations, make sure that you have an intentional reason behind them, and understand that there will be some hurt feelings you have to navigate around. But that's where you have to pray that God will work in your relationship, that he will restore wisdom to you both, even though you may be emotionally charged.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, we kind of give boundaries like a bad rap when they're really put in place to help us. So, side note, I'm writing an article about budgeting tips right now for our clients to use for their employees. And I was thinking about how to write this. And I was like, well, why do we have a budget? A budget is put in place not to necessarily hinder you from buying the things that you want and desire in life, but it's actually there to help you be able to afford the things that you want and desire in life. So I kind of feel like boundaries are the same kind of thing. Like you will always have boundaries in life. You'll have boundaries with your family. You'll have boundaries with your spouse one day. So it's not a negative thing to also have boundaries in your dating relationship. And if they take offense to that, then like you're saying, all you can do is pray for grace and wisdom, and that the Lord would soften their heart to come to terms with this concept. But you don't have to have like entirely separate lives and never do anything with them except go on a date once a week or something.
Right.
We're not saying that, but at the same time, we're not saying you completely morph your lives together and become one, because you're not yet. And you may never become one. So tricking your mind into thinking that these are the necessary steps to get closer to someone will hurt more in the long run, because if it doesn't work out, then you've invested so much and put so much of yourself and your life into this person, and you've almost been acting like you're married.
Yeah, when you didn't need to.
Yeah, when you didn't need to excuse me. So honestly, boundaries are there to help you in the long run so that you don't wind up more hurt than could already be there.
That's a great point. I've always thought that when you look back at the very beginning of time, God puts boundaries in place in the Garden of Eden. And Adam is literally living the best life, Adam and Eve, living the best life anyone on earth has ever lived. No one has lived a better life than they were living at that moment. But there were still boundaries in place. And we saw that when those boundaries were violated, their lives got more complicated. They got harder. They released a whole host of complications into their life because they said, I don't want boundaries. And so when we date in a way that honors boundaries, we are almost guaranteeing that we stay on the smooth pavement. When we start getting off of that into the gravel or the rocks, it gets really tricky. And you're just making it harder for yourself to get back to the smooth pavement. So all of the boundaries that you set, whether those are physical, whether those are time-based, whatever they are, those are things that are designed to help you navigate the season of dating as smooth as possible, with as little turmoil as possible, so that you can get to the logical conclusion, which is either, yes, you're the right person for me, I would like to ask for your hand in marriage, or no, I don't think that this relationship is what God intends. You may be a great person, but we just don't seem to fit well together. And I'm going to trust God with both of our lives that he's going to lead us to the right person. And you move on. And you end up leaving the relationship on the smooth pavement because it's easy and you both have an understanding that's clear. So as you go about dating and you are tempted into acting like you're married, and usually you're pretty excited because now you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and it feels like you're in a new place. But remember that you are still single until you are married, and you should still honor that singleness by keeping your allegiance solely to God.
Yeah, that's really good. And I guess the last thing, just to wrap up this conversation, we really wanted to stress that in order to balance your personal life while dating, while still keeping both pretty seemingly well, as best you can, you can't forget the importance of community outside of your significant other. So I think kind of all of our points were leading up to this main one, in that your time isn't meant to just be completely spent with one person. That's not biblical. That's not healthy. And that's ultimately not going to help you determine whether or not this person is right for you in your life or not.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. Being surrounded by friends and good peers and mentors who can honestly help you evaluate that person, to talk things through with them, to think about their character, to think on certain situations that you need to step away from that person in order to level-headedly evaluate. I mean, those are really good things to be surrounded with when your mind is kind of up in the clouds. Like, you've got to take that step back, go back to your source of community and really talk through some things, think through some things, pray about it, and just kind of remove yourself from the situation just for a little bit. You don't have to completely ice them out, but it's healthy and it's biblical to take a step back and to be with your church family or community group or what have you and do life with them. They are they're in our lives to help sharpen us, to edify us, to push us closer to the Lord. So if you don't have a great source of community, I would suggest forget finding a boyfriend or girlfriend. Find that solid group of people who are chasing after Jesus with you, alongside you. Find that outlet first and then worry about dating.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you're a little bit older and you're concerned about timing and, you're going into your 30s or 40s or whatever it is, don't worry about your timeline, because honestly, when the Lord wants to work in your life, He'll bring it, and He doesn't need you to be a certain age to do that. So we have to trust Him with our time and with our lives, and believe that when the timing is right and when we're ready, He will bring that person. But you've got to have that community. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Just in my own personal life, I went from having a lot of community previously to moving to Nashville again and not having very much. And that was hard. And I have to say, even though we kind of made our decision as we were dating that we were the right person very quickly, I would have loved to have more community around me to help me firm up that decision and understand what I was doing and how I was thinking. Through God's grace, I was able to make that decision, and this marriage has been amazing. But just where I needed to be in community, I was not, and I felt the effect of that, and I didn't feel like I had the support system, through the ups and downs of any relationship, and you need that. So as someone who did not have that and should have, I really encourage you, go out and find people. Even if it is just mentors or older men and women that you may not say, well, I want to hang out with them all the time. Do it so that you can learn, and do it so that you can have a group of people that you can go to and ask questions. Because sometimes it's not that you have to be out going to a party with a bunch of friends to really establish community. Sometimes it's just that one-on-one 15 minutes before or after church that you're having a great conversation with your community. And that's what helps you to see what you weren't seeing yourself.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Honestly, it's hard this time in the world, and I'm sure it's always been hard at times, but to find good, life-giving people who are running after Jesus at the same pace as you. There are starting to be less and less younger people who love the Lord, want to serve in the church, want to get involved, want to put other people above themselves, as the Bible says. And so, maybe it is a situation like you're saying where you don't have that opportunity or that option. It's just not available to the season that you're in right now. There aren't any people like that around you that you could connect with. But there are a ton of local churches wherever you live. And, well, I can't speak to other countries. I'm not sure. I haven't been there, but likely.
We're in the Bible Belt of the South, so that's an excuse.
But I mean, even in areas of the United States that is not the Bible Belt, there are still...
Yeah, so you can still find a church and a group of believers. And God says wherever two people are gathered in his name, the Holy Spirit will be there. He will be there in force. And we have the opportunity wherever we are to group up with just a couple of people and to glorify his name through that relationship and genuinely get to know people. Yeah, we definitely, with this church we've been going to, there aren't a ton of young people, and we're honestly okay with that because we're learning so much and gaining so much wisdom from older couples who've been married like 40, 50, 60 years, and it's been incredible. So don't get down on yourself if you're like, I don't have like 10 Christian friends who are my age right now. That's okay. We honestly don't either. We don't have that many, but all you need is a couple of really good, solid ones. And if mentors is all you can get right now, then praise God for that, and pray that he will bring, some good community around you that is more closer to your age. Yeah, no, he definitely will. And that's something that we both have been praying a lot for just in our situation. I know 2020 was very hard for most people, especially if you started a new job or you moved to a new location. You probably don't have a lot of people that you know. And, we want to be praying for you. So please let us know your situation and what we can be praying for, and we'd be happy to be there for you. I know we've both felt that weight, and it means a lot when we're able to, at least over the internet, link up with believers that are thinking of us and making those requests to God. So please let us know. I really appreciate everyone who has put a review on Apple. We don't necessarily advertise that a lot, but that of course helps people find this show and find us. So we really appreciate you who have done that, and just want to say that we hope that these episodes have been things that have helped you in even just small ways. And we want to be more helpful. So please share with us how we can share other episodes, what you want to see from us. We've been putting stuff on YouTube and Instagram and a bunch of other sources. So trying to make things more widely available. But I'm sure there is more that we can do. So let us know.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's all for today. We'll see you guys next week for another episode. And in the meantime, keep living life in the right lane.